This conference will now be recorded.
We had finished the due care and due diligence and the strategic. Yeah.
Even in BASTA model, I mean, stride and BASTA threat modeling.
Threat modeling, yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So we had discussed about the threat modeling also, but where what have we discussed on the threat modeling, Anchal?
So we had discussion like threat modeling is generally done to check what kind of attack. Like we first identify the assets and then see what kind of threat is can be, or what kind of vulnerability exists in the system and what threat can impact it. So that calculation that is there, right? So
yeah,
that we discussed, like risk is threatened to vulnerability into impact, or those kind of things.
And it is measured from 0 to 10, right?
Yeah, 0 to 10. And I think we were in dread. Dread we had already discussed. I think if you go downwards couple of slides, I think that was discussed. Then we had reached another. Dread is done. Now from basics of COBIT, I think you should start, because that we had just covered in a end. I think from COBIT we can start.
Okay. So what is a COBIT? Any idea?
I've not heard of COBIT, to be frank, so I'm not sure.
Okay. So COBIT is only it is a control, okay, where it is a continual improvement process. Okay, so COBIT is it is called as control objective for information and related technology, but COBIT is a what do they call? COBIT is industry standards. There are some set of industry standards where you practice the regulations and the certain set of IT regulations, so that your compliance will be there in place.
Okay.
So we have on-site. One second, and then I'll just have some water and come. 1 second. Sorry, just had to take a break. So we were discussing about COBIT, right? COBIT is a framework. Okay, it's actually that is the right word. It is a framework. Okay, where we have certain set of policies and IT regulations and policies where if we follow, then the best practices can be achieved. Okay, so that is completely dependent on the control objective. So the COBIT will have certain management guidelines and control objectives where you have to follow, like the ISO controls. Okay, but
Okay.
this COBIT is
So you're saying that ISO kind of a standard, compliance standard also falls under type of COBIT?
ISO is also a set of standard, right? ISO 27001, if you see, that is also having a set of rules, and it is also having a set of rules and controls which you have to follow, and that will lead to your IT security process, correct?
Oh,
So COBIT is more of a process oriented things, so that is why the management control will come into the place.
okay.
Okay, so you know about ISO 27001, right?
Yeah, so for any network to be, there is a lot of things like how do we manage our routines, our networks, our documentations, and all those sets of controls and all are there. And yeah, so that is done for organizations, this ISO 27001, how they are securing, how secure is their development practices? Do they do
Yeah,
scans? Do they have gates and all those things?
yeah, correct. I'm just preparing for a slide for ISO standards also. Let me show that. It's not yet completed. I have another slide, 1 minute. Okay, I will show you some set of ISO controls. Okay. See, in ISO 27001, you will have a lot of controls like this. Okay, so you have the internal organization at A6.1 and information security awareness training at 7.2.2. Okay, monitoring and information security risk management at 8.3. 9 as a whole will be performance evaluation, like that. So the COBIT also will have some set of 5 principles. Okay, so in COBIT we have majority of management stakeholder needs, or meeting the stakeholder needs, or the enabling of holistic approach, or separating governance from management, applying single integrated framework, okay, and covering the enterprise end to end. So whatever you know is related to the control objectives for a delivery, it is it is a COBIT, control objectives for information and related technology. It is basically the control objective. Okay, so majority, it is a control objective where you will define the objectives for each control.
Right.
So we have 5 principles in COBIT. So one of them is the stakeholder. You have to meet the stakeholder for to understand what is the exact requirement and all those stuff. And then this one you will have. The second principle is to cover the enterprise end to end, whatever is required. So all those things will be listed and that will be documented. And then you have to apply a framework for it. That is the third principle. So whatever the information you have, you will have to do a framework based on whatever the information you have gathered. And then you have to execute that. So for executing that, you have to have a proper approach. So how are you going to deliver and all those stuff? That will be your principle 4. And the principle 5 will be separating the governance from the management. So governance and the management, both will not be put together, they will be put separate, so that the delivery process will become easy. Okay,
Right.
so the main objective of the COBIT, COBIT functions to be implemented is to improve improve the governance. Okay, and how well you can organize your organization to deliver the IT requirement. Okay, we have 4 domains in COBIT. That is your plan, organize, acquire, and implement, deliver, and support. So same like the audit structure itself. These are the 4 stages of COBIT. One is plan, organize, acquire, and implement, and deliver and support. After
Okay.
that, the monitoring will come into the place.
Got
Then is your PASTA. We have already discussed, I believe, this PASTA initially. So can you tell me what is a PASTA, PASTA?
So BASTA is also one of the threat modeling framework, and so it's more or from my understanding, it's more or less like other threat modeling, only that the various pillars, or we can say the various the process involves different. Like your second screen on see on screen, it's like as we define the objective, that is what kind of application or what kind of asset and what we are doing for. Then you know decomposition and analysis means we will, maybe if an application contains different services or something, we can decompose it in different kind of network services and firewalls, etc., etc. Then at what service or what network level, what kind of threat is there, then identify its weaknesses, as in the vulnerability scanning and manual assessments and all. Then maybe defining attack scenarios, impact analysis, etc.
Yeah. So PASTA, that is a process for attack simulation and threat analysis, is nothing but methodology, okay, or a framework, as you told, but it is majority, it is related to the threat modeling. Okay, what kind of threats are going to means what kind of threats are uh, what kind of threats are present, and how we are going to monitoring that, how are we going to monitor that. Okay, so that is nothing but the pasta, it is a simulation and a framework for the threat analysis which needs to be done. Okay, so however you do a threat analysis, okay, based on if you want to have a proper threat analysis to be done within your organization, based on what kind of penetration test what you are going to do, or an attack simulation is nothing but a penetration test. So attack simulation and threat analysis, that is what kind of threat is going to be there in the organization, that is nothing but your VA. Okay, so that is a vulnerability assessment. So vulnerability assessment and threat, based on the vulnerability assessment and the penetration test, there is a risk centric threat modeling framework which you are going to do. That is nothing but a, that is called as a PASTA, PASTA, process. P for stands for process, stands for attack, S stands for simulation, and T for threat, and A for analysis. Okay, process, attack, simulation, threat analysis, it is called. So it is nothing but a, see, you don't have to, uh, go through the definitions and all. It is nothing but, whenever there is an attack simulation which happens, that is, attack simulation is nothing but your penetration test, right? You already, what is a penetration test. So, and what is a vulnerability assessment, correct?
Right, I
Hello.
know vulnerability
Yeah.
assessment. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So based on that, you will have a risk monitor, right? You will, do you use a GRC tool?
GRC tool as in the risk compliance tools, right?
Correct, correct, correct.
Yeah. But GRC as in you're saying, so in my company, we have different set of tools. Maybe one is for, once we do the penetration testing or design review or code review, we log those findings there. From there, it creates tickets for the application owners to, take up the task for remediation and all those things. So is that what you mean by GRC tool, or is it
Yes,
threat?
yes. The same thing.
Okay.
That is nothing but a GRC tool. So that you will enter all the details over there, whatever whatever you have, the analysis which are done, you will be putting it over there, right? You will be documenting it in that particular tool. So we use something called as Iramba. Which tool you are using?
So we have a ingrown tool, homegrown tool, actually, it's called My Tech
Okay,
Risk.
my Texas. Okay.
Yeah, My Tech
Anyways,
Risk is the tool, yeah.
Uh, so what that will do is it will actually collect all the information, and it will it will give you the information of what kind of vulnerability is existing in your organization, and what is the threat analysis. You would have predefined nothing, it will do nothing, means it will not do anything by itself. You would have already predefined what is the risk calculation and all those stuff, and then you will mention what kind of threat is available. Then what it will do is it will already you, so let's say you have a timeline given as 15, 30, 60, and 90, where 15 will be your critical high, 30 will be your high, and 60 will be your medium, and 90 will be low, or based on whatever the your company policy is. So what that tool will do is it will calculate, and it will automatically convert that risk into high if that particular mitigation is not completed. Okay, so it will have the risk calculation and all done by itself. So those things and all will be calculated by the risk centric threat modeling framework.
Right.
So I just gave you that example because we can calculate by itself, or there will be some separate tools which we can use on a on an enterprise level for automatically calculating all those things in place. Okay, so that is nothing but PASTA or PASTA. It is the process for attack simulation and threat analysis. So if you understand this, then you don't have to go by each and every line in the page, or so rest everything is self-explanatory, right? So define objective is a part of it. Define technical scope is a part of it. Application decomposition and analysis is also a part of it. Threat analysis is already, we have discussed on it. Vulnerability weakness analysis will come under threat analysis. Attack modeling and simulation, AMS, that is also there. And risk impact analysis, that is what I told you, RIA, that is your risk calculation. That is the framework, risk centric threat modeling framework. So I think it is clear, right? Because I don't want you to read or multiple pages or anything like that. Everything will end up in this particular concept only, whatever we have discussed so far.
Yes, yes. So this is good.
Yeah, so in objectives we have the compliance requirements, PCI-DSS, HIPAA, and so you have a lot of this is one para which is from your syllabus, but you have a lot of definition like this. Okay, so but these are the 7 steps which you are having. Okay, define objective, define technical scope, application decomposition analysis, threat analysis, vulnerability weakness, attack modeling and simulation, and risk impact analysis. But nobody will ask, what is the 7 steps of PASTA or anything like that. They will
Yeah,
ask what is a PASTA, and you know what is a PASTA now. That's it. Okay.
yeah.
So these are the 7 stages. One is, again, if we come back, we are process. So we define a process and we identify the threat. Okay, and we do the attack simulation. In the initial stage we do a attack simulation. Before attack simulation, obviously we are going to do a VA, that is your vulnerability test. So once that is completed, then you will do an attack simulation, correct? So once
Yeah.
that is done, then your first stage is over. Okay, your objectives is objective is to find out the vulnerability assessment. Sorry, vulnerable. Yeah, you have to check for what kind of vulnerability and what is the threat and all those things you will have to define, and you will have to create an objective for it. So that is the stage 1. Then stage 2 is definition of the technical scope. That is, how are you going to define the process? How are you going to which process? How are you going to define the technical scope on how you perform a threat modeling or attack simulation or anything like that. So that is your stage 2. Then application decomposition and assertion. Do you know what is an application decomposition?
Maybe we will let's suppose there's an application which have different modules or different it's a service oriented if like so different kind of services, so maybe decomposing it in uh, various parts or something so that it can be assessed separately or something.
Okay, so not attack. This application decomposition is nothing but the fundamental behavior. Okay, it's a fundamental behavior of an application, how it behaves. That is the application decomposition. Okay, how it behaves and all those things. So that is the documentation what you're going to do. Okay, this one, if you take an application, or if you if the application is there, let's say a software, okay, so or the IAS application, if it is there, so what kind of behavior it is having, and how many how much time you have found out that vulnerability, and how are you going to mitigate, means what kind of applications, how many times you have done the test, and all those things is nothing but a application decomposition. It's not that the application you have to uh, evaluate, or stop it or something like that. So let's say your application uses a Java or a .NET, which is having an older version. Okay, so still you will have to do the test, right? It's already if it is a older version, let's take it's a older version of 3 or 3.5. So then you are still doing it, doing a test, you are still doing a VA, and you are still doing an attack simulation and all those stuff. So you were just mentioning that as documenting it as a application decomposition.
Right.
So based on that you will optimize it. Okay, so using certain tools you will be optimizing the the speed or the code or anything like that. So that is nothing but the stage 3. Okay, application decomposition and an assertion. And then you will have the threat analysis. Threat analysis, you already know what kind of threat will be identified, and what kind of threat is been identified, and how it has been how you can address that. That is a threat analysis. And weakness and vulnerability analysis is also the same thing. Okay, that is a stage 5. So any application which is a known application and which is having some kind of vulnerability within that, that is a weakness and vulnerability analysis. And then attack modeling, that is nothing but your, once the VA is done, that's what I initially told, once the VA is done, then you will go for a PT, right? Penetration test. So once you do a PT, that is nothing but attack simulation or attack modeling, how you are going to perform that. Okay, so once that is done, then you will have a risk analysis. Like you will come to know what is the actual threat, and how are you going to define whether that application is in a high risk or a critical risk or something like that.
Right.
So is it confusing or is it clear?
It's clear, but I think mostly I am still confused between two parts. A definition of objectives and definition of technical scope. Like how we will segregate. Let's suppose there is a scenario-based question or something. Then how we will be able to tell what should be there in defining objective and what should be there in defining technical scope. Because
Okay.
generally, yeah.
Okay, I will tell you once again. So definition of object. So it is nothing but an objective. Okay, so let's say you are going to implement a test. Okay, so how are you going to project to the management? You will say this is the application. Okay, this is the application, and this is what it is going to be performed. And this has to be, this application is on which level? Is it a high risk or application, or a medium risk application, or anything like that? That is one objective maybe. Okay, the other objective is it may be um, critical application. Okay, or it may be let's say that application is whether it is a client application or in-house application which is used within the the office itself, or the scope of application can be defined. All those things will be defined in stage 1, which is generic. Okay, so the second one will be the technical scope. What application it is? What is it, a .NET application or a PHP application? What kind of Java framework it is being using? All those things will be under technical scope of work. So your development team will do that. The technical scope. Your objectives will be done by the managers only. Most of the objectives will be defined by the managers only, which will be showcased to the management.
Okay, got it.
So is it fine? So
Yeah, yeah.
that is
Now
clear.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's
the
more
technical scope,
more granular approach to technical details, and
correct.
overall end objective is kind of a deal.
Yeah. So in third stage, you will see whether that application has to be decomposed or create a new app or something like that. So it will be in .NET Framework 3 or 3.5, and again that risk will be there. But still, you are doing the test again and again for the same thing. So that is the application decomposition and assertion. Okay, so at that point of time, you will decide whether you have to go for a new application or you will still stick on with the same, application and the framework, whatever is currently over there. So let's say the bootstrap. If you want to change the bootstrap, you will have a lot of, you will be working a lot of, CSS, everything has to be changed, right? The framework has to be completely changed if it is this one, bootstrap change or a .NET framework. So at that point of time, you will say that it cannot be done as of now. That is a vulnerability, but the most of the development team, they will not agree to do it. They will take some time to implement and do it. So that will become your application decomposition and assertion. Then comes your VA. Okay, that is your threat analysis, and then your uh, the vulnerability analysis, and then your attack modeling simulation and the risk analysis management. So any doubts, or do you want to explain once again?
No, I think this is good, Abhinav.
Okay, great. So do you know what is a stride?
Stride is again one more threat
Type,
modeling type,
correct.
yeah. But
It is same like,
sure. But I
that's right.
mean, no, all of these have different kind of terminologies, right? So maybe
Yeah.
we can go through the terminologies once again, like spoofing, tampering, etc.
Yeah, so stride is nothing but spoofing, tampering. S stands for spoofing, T stands for tampering, R stands for repudiation, and stands for information disclosure. D stands for denial of service. E stands for this one, elevation of privilege. So, do you know what is the elevation of privilege?
Elevation of privilege is like, let's suppose uh, there's some weakness in an application because of which a privilege escalation or access control bypass can be done. So elevation of privilege is like, let's suppose I have a read-only access and somebody has a read-write access. So by exploiting
Correct,
some
correct.
vulnerability in the application, if I'm able to elevate my privilege to a read-write user, then it's an elevation of privilege.
Great. Yeah, that is right. So elevation of privilege is nothing but one level higher than what you are using. So for example, if you want to do a penetration test, you need to give the username and password, so it will actually go and penetrate and it will see whether it can be penetrated or not. Correct. So that is nothing but a elevation of privilege. So what is denial of service?
Denial of service is like it's availability issue where it can be done in multiple ways. One of the ways is like suppose making too many connections from one or different sources, and keeping the resource hung for so that the other users are not able to access it. And denial of service can be of many types. Let's suppose uh, if I intentionally upload very large files to the server so that other people are not able to, so that the system is not able to process this. So that also can call denial of service because other users might not be able to upload their file or whatever. So these kind of things, like whichever impacts availability.
Okay, so denial of service, okay, or a denial of service test is nothing but, to send a lot of traffic or flooding the application. If suppose if you are opening some kind of a vulnerability where I can flood your application, okay, that is nothing but denial of service
Right.
test. Okay, so during that period of time, what happens? Your application will get crashed, right? So your application, the whole application will get crashed. So that is what they do the test, if the application crashing will happen or not. That is what is the actual test. You do the penetration test, right? So in
Yeah.
penetration testing, there is an option for denial of service also, right? So if the when you do the test, you have a denial of service and brute force attack and all those things, right?
Right. Food forcing
So
or yeah.
yeah, that those are all nothing but a denial of service. Brute force is also a denial of service only.
Yeah, it's
Got it?
also denial of service because we brute force it multiple times, and let's suppose the account gets locked out or something for the legit user, that will also cause availability issue.
Yeah. So those are the denial of service. Okay. So in case if you come across with the stride, or so the many people are using the stride way of doing the test channel. BASTA, it is generic, it is very much generic. Okay, so after the VA is done, so once the application, what kind of application is there, and what is the what is the purpose, and all those things will be defined by the stage one, and stage two will say what kind of application, and whether it is PHP or .NET or anything like that, which framework it is being used. All those things technically it will be defined on the other column, and then you will do a see what kind of whether the particular application has been is the latest application or not, and then you will go for a VA, and then the threat analysis and PAT, and then you will identify that application as a risk or anything like that. Correct. So then only you will send it for a production. So that is the past step. But in stride, what happens is you will have the spoofing test which needs to be done: tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and evaluation of privilege. Elevation will happen or not, something like that. So yeah, what is the information disclosure?
Information disclosure is like any sensitive information. Let's suppose there is client information, and because of IDOR or any kind of if we are able to make some tamper some parameters and get access details, etc., from the server or database, this can lead to information disclosure. So basically, the someone getting access to the data which they shouldn't have access to using some vulnerability is information disclosure.
Okay, great. So information disclosure, when you are doing a test, that means it should not give you the information through the query. That is what they expect. Okay, but let's say how the attack will happen. So let's say I am a CEO of the company, or you are the director of the company. So many attacks will happen through the emails, right? Because they cannot come directly, because there is a lot of security in place. So only one way to attack is the easiest way to attack is emails, because we have a lot of loopholes and gaps through emails. That is the way we can get into the network. Correct. So what happens is, on the website, okay, if you do some query, okay, you can get into the it means you can get to know the details of emails and their designation and all those stuff. Correct. That is nothing but a information disclosure. Majority, that is the one which everyone will consider. Okay, so tampering and all, reputation.
Tampering, yeah, tampering is more on the integrity side or something. Like suppose somebody created a payment request for $100, and if through man in the middle attack or phishing or something, we are able to
Correct, correct.
tamper that data and make it, let's say, for $120 or something, that will stamp it.
Yeah, that's correct. So what do you mean by a reputation?
Reputation is, let's suppose I am I'm trying to fish someone. Okay, so let's suppose I want to perform some activity, but on somebody else's behalf or something. So it's like in audits and all. Let's suppose I am a user, a valid user, and if you fish me in getting something
Okay.
done, so that is like a reputation attack, right? Because you are basically, it will seem like I have done that. Is it?
So reputation is, you can say it as a, forging or an identification,
Yeah,
to
forging,
get,
basically. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, forging, or the what do you say, the identity of a person can be collected easily. So that is nothing but a reputation attack. So that also can be performed. Okay, so where you can properly, means whether the information can be tracked or not, that is also an reputation only.
Okay.
So manipulation, or if you want to manipulate any of the user records or logs or anything like that, that also will come under reputation. Or you can easily say it as a forging of a user or user log. That is also a reputation.
Okay, so if the log says that Vinod has done that, but actually I have done that, that is also a reputation attack.
Correct. So what happens is, let's say, I'm an internal user. Okay, I'm within an office. I know about the hacking tools and all those stuff. I will hack. Then the logs will be created from where, which source, and all those stuff. So I will remove the log also. Okay. So that way, I'm doing a reputation attack.
So I will tell you
Once the
about one
activity is
scenario.
done, sorry.
So Vinod, I will tell you about one scenario. So in
Yeah.
our organization, there was a very legacy application. Like, it's not widely used basically, but there is a legacy application which was based on thick client. Okay, so in that, a person who doesn't have access to that application and all, they can
Yeah.
get that application from the various firm-wide folders, etc. They can get it, and then since they are not, so basically in any organization, right, any kind of access will be provided to you based on some approvals and all. So, but you can make authentication bypass, like I can maybe log in as you by
Yeah.
making. So we've added some breakpoints using WinDebugger in that thick client application, where we were able to jump the entire function call for the validation of password. It directly led
Yeah.
us to
Exactly.
the.
That is the exact example of a reputation.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Correct. So then what happened?
So we were able to log in into that application using another user, and we can do any privileged action. So actually, that entire
Okay.
validation call was on the client side. So basically, these kind of things should be server side, right? If the validation should be done or not done. But I think it was a very legacy, very very old application, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a thick client, and this kind of validation logic or the function call was. Setting the parameter 0, 1 and all those things, and based off that going to the next function call and all was done on the client side. So if you deliberately go and change that binary from 1 to 0, 0 to 1 and all, or bypass, jump the entire function call, make a jump to that offset or memory address, you will be able to bypass that entire function call.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So now, obviously, I mean, the application team is fixing it, and they will be able to, they will remove
Okay,
this
so
harm.
for that to fix, you need to have the behavioral analysis to be configured properly on the antivirus. So
Right.
you said it is a thin client, right?
Thick client. It was a thick
Thin
client.
client, thick client. Okay, okay, thick client. Okay, normally what happens is in thick client, thick client and thin client both, they don't. Some of them will not prefer to put an antivirus for some reason,
Right.
because they say that they will be giving access only for the Citrix. Correct.
Right.
So in that way, in that manner also, the security has to be very much tight. Otherwise, if they find anything like this, then they have to use a antivirus with behavior analysis in place. What behavior analysis will do is it will identify, this kind of behavior, and then it will stop them from doing that. Those kind of attacks can be prevented.
Yeah, and mostly I think for this the basic idea should be that all this kind of important logics, because now the client is not widely used right now. It is all server side validation is what is helpful. Now relying on client side for any kind of important functionality is not gonna help.
Okay. Yeah, that's also right. So then, overall the stride, okay, is threat modeling concept similar to your BASTA, okay, but
Basically, Vinod, for this threat modeling using Stride, so are you saying that we will identify the asset, and based on
yeah,
that we will assess if it can be spoofed, it can be tampered, it can be replicated, and permission disclosure, etc., etc. Is that true?
yes, that
Okay.
is how it is.
Okay.
Okay, now that is modeling. Now, stride is also a modeling concept where it uses VAST, that is nothing but visual, agile, and simple threat.
Okay.
Okay, it is called as VAST, visual, agile, and simple threat. Do you know what is agile?
Agile is continuous development,
Okay.
like uh, like it's kind of a coding, like what we use is agile model. Let's suppose it's not like waterfall or something, right? Waterfall model is like you have defined everything in the advance and everything has to be done like same thing. But agile is like, let's suppose we are developing some application. In the first sprint, we wrote some code. After the first sprint, functional testing, security testing, manual penetration testing, and all. Based on that outcome, we might want to change some design there, add some extra functionalities, or remove some redundant logics and all, and then we will proceed with the sprint two. So basically, continuously assessing the uh, already developed thing and making changes as which can suit. Basically, it is very uh, adaptive, or I can say change friendly kind of a model.
Correct. What you told now, the adaptive or the easiness or the optimization, all those things is nothing but agile. That's why I asked you, because rest everything is same, but agile was a little different here. So visual, agile, and simple thread is that is a modeling concept. Okay, so based on agile project management. So
Right.
in agile project management, you know what happens?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like every sprint, then it was divided into sprints, and each
Yeah, no,
sprint
no, no. I will
has
tell you, in agile project management, what will happen is they, overall, okay, if you go through the companies where they follow agile project management, okay, what they will do is they will analyze your skill set, and based on the skill set, they will give you the job. Now, end of the day, what will happen is you will not even have a time for a break in that way. So that is what is the overall agile project management. Okay, so that will be the optimization what they are going to do. So it is, it is a complete framework. Okay, so if somebody is working in agile project, you will come to know. So how difficult and means not difficult, how optimized it will be. So they will not even, to be very honest with you, I think they will not even have a time for a break of half an hour or 1 hour also. So there will be a proper process flow and process management in place, where their skill sets are exactly, skill sets are used as per whatever they have promised. So that is what is a agile project management. Here also, if you see, it is consisted of visual. Agile is nothing but the optimization, or the performance, or whatever it is, and the simple threat. So this is what is the modeling concept, which agile project management and programming principles will be using. So that is what is to integrate the threat and risk management. Okay, on a scalable basis. If you see here, it is a scalable basis. Okay, so it will always be scaling as, what is the scaling means, measuring, quantitative approach. Sorry, yeah, quantitative. It's a quantitative approach. Okay, these are some of the methodologies which are available for your process improvements. Okay, but this is only the, okay, this is only the brief of, how the stride will be working. So what you are going to get when you are using a stride. Okay, but that is nowhere, this is from your syllabus. But stride, is nothing but you are spoofing, you are testing whether you can spoof it, tamper, reputation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privileges. If you are able to test all these things, that is nothing but your stride. Okay, so is it clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
So good. So you have a overall very good knowledge, you know uh, so it's easy
Yeah,
for you to
Vinod,
understand.
it's been, so I'm a penetration tester, Vinod, I'm a manual pen tester.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the reason it is, you are able to grasp it very easily. Yeah. So then, so but you know what? I have seen the people who are in that particular field, and they were not able to answer many of these things.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have seen that also. Like many times I take interviews for people who are OSCP certified and all. And if you
Yeah.
ask them about hashing and encryption, they will get confused. So
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know
right.
how people clear certifications and how people do these things. But yeah, I mean, I've seen that as well. Basics are in general is I've seen not clear.
Yeah. So there is one more.
That is one
For
reason actually, Vinod, I wanted to go for CISSP because CISSP is a very broad thing. But
Yeah,
at the same time it is having like it's lot of theory, to be frank, but at the same time not having knowledge of these things is a little problematic, I feel.
yeah. At least you don't have to be embarrassed in between the
Yeah,
management or somebody when they speaks out.
yeah, and
Uh,
since I have 5 plus 6 around years of experience now, day to day I have to deal with senior management and all, and I feel I should be uh, able to have these things, knowledge of these all these things, right?
yeah, that's right. Anyways, good. So that is one thing. And VAST, as we spoke about, it is nothing but visual, agile and simple threat. Okay, based on agile project management. If you have an agile project management, these things will be included by default. Okay, so and once you do the simple threat, or what is a simple threat? Any threat in that way is nothing but your VA and PT, right? Vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, or any kind of threat is directly equivalent to whatever the outcome you're going to measure it as a severity, whether it is critical, high, medium, or low. correct. So those things, when you are when you are implementing that and when you are optimizing it, is nothing but a VAST, or pasta, or this one, what is that, uh, your stride. Okay, so this is nothing but vast. Okay, so vast is also another threat modeling concept based on agile project management and programming principles.
Okay.
So we have spoken about risk many times. So what is a risk?
Risk is if let's suppose risk can be if there is a threat or there exists a vulnerability to an asset which can be exploited by a which can be exploited by a threat, then it's a risk. So risk is nothing but we can say what 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 can be the impact of any kind of attack on a particular asset, maybe is the risk.
Okay, so
Like basically I can say impact on any asset if any attack happens or if there is any threat existing is a risk.
okay, yeah, that's right. So risk is nothing but impact. What you told is exactly correct. Impact and vulnerability. Okay, if there
Yeah.
is any vulnerability and the impact, that is nothing but the risk. So there is, that risk will be calculated. So if there is, let's say, uh, you know, uh, you will have a template in your GRC tool. You will say that this particular, you will do a VA test, and then VA test will consider as a impact, okay, for that particular application, and it will also say it as risk is critical or something like that. So it will
Yeah.
give you the analysis saying that the critical, maybe you would have put a rating as 10, okay, and the impact is also there. Impact, when your tool is saying as impact, it may be, that also may be 10, so it will be 100, so the risk will be 100. So that is nothing but the impact and the vulnerability both. Okay, that we have in different methods, or there are a lot of theories behind this risk assessment and all, but this is what you have to consider.
Okay.
Okay, so sometimes they will be calculating based on percentage, that's all, but it is all between 1 to 10. How, what is that rating you are giving? And when you upload any data to a GRC tool, I'm just giving you an example. GRC tool is the best way to calculate, okay? So otherwise, you can put it on an Excel sheet also. So if you put it on an Excel sheet, you will be doing it manually. If you are putting it on a GRC tool, it will calculate by itself. So how it will calculate is, you have already defined what is the impact and what is the value for an impact, and you would have already defined what is the value for critical, high, medium and low. Okay, so based on that, when you upload some data to the GRC tool, or you upload some data on the Excel file, so whoever is having a GRC tool, it will calculate based on the the risk or whatever is there, and sorry, it will calculate the impact and the vulnerability, and it will give you the output. Okay, so it may be given in the form of percentage or in the form of value also.
Okay.
That is what it is.
CVS scoring is also risk assessment, right?
Yeah, that is also after the output has been calculated, then your CVE score will be coming into the picture. That is nothing but scoring. Yeah, correct. So that is the exact thing. So likelihood is nothing but vulnerability. Okay, here you are seeing, or many times you'll be seeing a word called likelihood. Okay, that is nothing but vulnerability.
Okay.
So these are some of the terminologies. AV will be a cost of an asset. EF will be the percentage of a loss. SLA is nothing but the loss in the single event if the threat is realized. That is, loss is equal to AV into EF. Okay, that is nothing but, uh, what kind of, if any losses, if you are identifying and if you are able to upload it on any kind of a tool or Excel sheet, so then that is how it is. And then you have the ARO is often as a threat will be how much successful it is per year, or ALE will be the estimated loss of an asset per year. So that is what it is. So any other anything which is which you have to discuss on this?
No, I think this is fine.
Okay. So again, we have so these are some of the terminologies. I'm sure you will be knowing about this. This is only again from the theory. The loss of goodwill among the client base or employees after a prolonged downtime. So these are the calculations, things which you can
Yeah.
remember. That's it. You will be knowing all these things by default because you are already in this, right? So absolutely, quantitative is qualitative and quantitative. We have both risk analysis. Quantitative is, uh, quantitative
Percentage,
is nothing but, sorry.
asset value, and what kind of monetary loss
Correct,
can
correct,
happen.
correct. Correct. Qualitative is nothing but, how much or, the stability is nothing but a qualitative assessment. How much stable it is or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
Okay, do you know what is a Delphi method?
Oh, no, Vinod, I don't know from this.
So Delphi, yeah, do you know what is a forecasting? Have you worked on uh,
Forecasting, yes.
yeah, that,
Forecasting is
okay.
generally, I mean, it can be based on, let's suppose something is being, so some application is internet facing. So maybe there is obviously a higher threat to that. So forecasting what kind of issues might happen or something, but not sure. Like this is my guess.
Okay, so I have already told you that if you have a GRC tool and then if you have
Yeah.
uploaded, so it will uploaded some data, and if it is not remediated over a period of time, okay, it will change automatically. The risk will get changed automatically, right?
You're right.
So that is nothing but a forecasting. Okay, so it will do a forecasting and then it will do a notification and it will change the severity from high to critical if it is not addressed.
Okay.
So there is a structured, technique or the structured method, okay, to differentiate and identify and, inform or, communicate to different stakeholders or anything like that. So that is nothing but a Delphi method.
Okay.
Okay, so that GRC tool, I just gave you an example. Okay, so let's say if you have, there is a tool called PyraCloud. Okay, so what that will do
Pyrocloud.
is, yeah, do you know about it?
No, 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 I
Okay, that is, another tool which will give you the cost forecasting of a company based on the previous trends, and it will give you the forecasting. Okay, and it will even look at what point of time how much traffic will be and what would be the cost, and then it will give you the forecasting based on what day what will be your cost. So to that extent they will give you the cost
Okay.
analysis. So that also is a Delphi method, because they what they are going to do, they are going to study the previous algorithm, right? So on what date, what time, what is the traffic, and how much data is being incoming and outgoing, and what would be the cost will be given by the Azure only. If you see Azure or AWS, the cost will be given. Okay, that cost will be, cost access will be there. So based on that, how much cost it is going to be increased or decreased, that also it will calculate. Okay, so in future also at that particular point of time, it will give you that kind of an analysis. So that is what is kind of a Delphi method. It is applicable for, it is not only applicable for risk analysis, it is applicable for any kind of study. That is a Delphi method. Okay, so Delphi is a quantitative risk analysis method where you will be able to identify what kind of risk is being identified at what given point of time.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
So do you know what is a octave?
Uh, Octave again, risk assessment. I think a tool is there. Octave I've heard about, but not in detail. But I'm definitely heard about Octave.
Okay. Okay, great. So what you told is correct. There is a Octave framework. Okay, so this is again from your syllabus only, but Octave is operationally critical threat assessment and vulnerability.
Okay.
Okay, evaluation. It is O stands for operational, C stands for critical, stands for threat, stands for asset, and stands for vulnerability, and E stands for evaluation. Okay, it's a framework. Okay, to identify the information and the security risk, whatever is there. Okay, so it is only a framework. Okay, the security framework it is based on what kind of threat is going to happen. So for example, you will do a VA, correct? So
Yeah.
once you do a VA, then once you do a VA and everything is fine, then you will do a PT. So uh, is in simple way, let's say that you have done a VA, and you have patched it, and you will say that that particular system is patched. Okay, so whether it is really patched or not, what are you going to do? You are going to do a PT, and then you will see whether that is really, whether the patch is really working or not. When you do a PT, you will come to know, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So what is that you are going to do? You are verifying again and again. So you are actually verifying with different things together. So you could have just done a VA and left it. So if the organization will follow the policy and a procedure, if you put a policy and a procedure that after the VA is done, then you have to do a PT. So there is a process in place, right? So to have a PT also to be done after the VA test is done. So that is nothing but a framework. Okay, you are setting a framework and a method to identify the risk and the security to be well tested in advance. Okay, so or in a periodical way. So that those kind of process is nothing but Octave.
Okay.
Okay, so in Octave, the critical thing is your asset. Okay, once your asset is there, then you will have a vulnerability presented, vulnerability associated with that asset, and you will have a mitigation control. And once that mitigation control is done, then you will do a test that is nothing but your PT. Mitigation control is nothing but your VA. Okay, vulnerability assessment. After that, you will do a penetration testing. So once that penetration testing is done, then it will be easy. So that is the actual framework. You're understanding, right?
Yeah.
So for you, it was very easy to understand. I'm sure you were able to understand very easily. But if for others, I will take a long time for them to make them understand this.
Yeah.
Okay, then also I will not be sure whether they have understood or not, because these are the very critical things. Okay, so this is the thing. I mean, these are the things which you have to understand better. Then rest everything is the theory. Okay, you don't have to mug up the theory if you understand this concept. Otherwise,
Right.
you will be ending up in by hearting the theory itself. So which is not correct. You will forget every time.
Right. I generally like I have to apply these things also in day to day.
Yeah, now if you see, now for you this is like a cakewalk for you. This slide will be a cakewalk for you because it is already known. NIST is a
Yeah.
standard. Okay,
Yeah.
so
List
it
is a
is
standard.
also, yeah, so risk assumption, risk avoidance, risk limitation. I'm sure you would be knowing everything whichever is there in the slide, and it is
Risk
all,
assumption is risk assumption is like a risk acceptance only, right? Like they have
yeah,
accepted the risk
risk
and
accept,
they are
yeah,
they are not able to mitigate because of some business uh,
correct.
policy.
Yeah, no, they are not able to mitigate because of some business call or something like that,
So yeah,
or
something.
the timelines. Yeah,
Yeah, avoidance is to uh, basically instead of uh, catching the risk or they will basically put down the asset or something.
and they will stop it. And that's it.
Yeah,
They will not. They are not going to work on that risk again. So they will just stop it. They don't want that to happen again. They don't want that to be used. For example, there will be an application which is you know uh, running on .NET Framework 2.0.
right,
Okay, and the business will say that we don't want to work on this application. There, the profitability or some kind of a complication will be there. They say that that is the least priority for us, so we don't have to work on that. So what the security team will say is, if that is the case, you bring it down, because that will cause another problem. If it is on, then it will give you another problem. So then they will find out a way, and they will say that let's shut it down itself. So that is nothing but risk avoidance. You don't work on that risk, and then you will close it off, means you will stop that. So that is a risk avoidance. You are taking that asset away.
right. Limitation is like you still have some residual risk, but you are trying to basically minimize the impact by doing some kind of controls.
Yeah, so for example, I told you, in an ATM center you will be using Windows 7 or Windows XP. Okay, so due to the time limitation or due to the application limitation, no matter whatever it is, so on top of that, they don't want to disturb the existing settings or existing things in whichever is there in place. So they will put a HSM, that is nothing but your hardware security module. So once you put the hardware security module, your the risk which is there on that particular machine is still there, but you are overcoming that in a different way. Okay, so that is nothing but you are limiting the risk by implementing another control in place. That is the risk limitation. You got it, right?
Right, yeah.
So I told you earlier, if we have the in an ATM center, if you have uh, Windows XP, you still see Windows XP in some of the machines. Okay, sometimes it may be crashed, and you will be able to see the Windows XP machine again. So how the communication will happen. The communication will will happen, will has to communicate to the office only, their data center, your the bank data center. So it has to go through the VPN or through the internet only, right? So when it is exposed to internet, it is always unsafe to be on internet. So they use a separate module called HSM. Okay, so when you use a HSM, the operating system will not come into place. It will be like an additional firewall which is getting communicated to your data center directly. So there is a small device like a modem. It is called as HSM, which will encrypt and which will make sure that the data is encrypted in a different in their own way, in their own standard. So that is how they avoid the risk to
Yeah,
be, the risk will be there, but still they will limit that risk by using a HSM module in place.
yeah,
So what I would try to say is, you will come across these kind of terminologies now and then every time. So, but what
yeah,
the main terminologies we are going to discuss, that will remain the same. Okay, it
yeah.
is not going to change. Like PDCA, you know what is a PDCA, right? Plan, Do, Check, Act.
Plan? Sorry, what?
There is a
Plan?
cycle called PDCA.
Okay.
Plan, Do, Check, Act. So that is
Plan is
common.
risk planning, then like planning the mitigation. Two is implementing, check like again testing,
Yeah, that
and
comes in auditing actually.
yeah,
That comes in auditing. So it is an evergreen thing. Wherever you go, you have to implement that only. Plan, Do, Check, Act.
yeah. No, that's from
So
from
that
the word
is,
it is definitive. Yeah, I mean it can be used in many places, but yeah,
yeah. So then that is one thing. And research and acknowledgement, you will have to do a lot of vulnerability tests, and you have to put a control in place to mitigate the vulnerability, either through a VA or a PT or something like that. So risk transfer we have already discussed, right? Risk transfer will
yeah,
be, yeah, you can transfer the risk to a right owner. So by default, the risk in your organization, it will be the IT infra head only, correct? So, but if
yeah,
the application is having any problem, then it has to be transferred to the risk has to be transferred to the application owner.
yes. Yeah,
So
I
then,
mean, I generally deal with so whatever findings are there or something in any design review, code review, or pen test. So my team will also look into that on weekly basis. So if let's suppose the app team will submit a ticket saying that we have already resolved this finding, so my team will do a retest and they will reach out to me that okay, this is retested and this is fixed, you can approve it. Or maybe if they sometimes what happens that these type of requests also come to us that this is kind of a infra level issue, can you please transfer this to network team, or
correct,
you
correct, correct. Yes. Okay. So good. So do you know what is a defense in depth?
so defense in depth strategy is used that you know even if for example uh, uh, let's suppose we know that if you have a right kind of validation in place for checking the credential, right? Username and password. But still, as a defense in depth, what will we do is we will have a account logout kind of thing that okay, after 5 attempts, please log it out, or if it is logged out, it should be logged out for some time. And so basically it's like we already have a defense in place which is checking the validation of password, but defense in depth is that if somebody tries too many times we will block them. So it's like a in-depth strategy on ensuring no unauthenticated access happens.
Yeah, that's right. So one best example is how to protect yourself from a different way.
Yeah,
Okay, so how
exactly.
you
Yes.
can protect yourself in a different way. That's what is a defense in depth. So one best example is, I am creating an application for myself. Okay, I have
Okay.
not yet launched in the market. Okay, so now what happens is, I have a fear where, you know, I will say that, if somebody will hack my code, okay, to get into the server, so then what will happen? So then what will happen is, they will control, because since it is on the network, they can control anybody else's devices. Correct. So what I
Yeah.
have done is I've created a separate algorithm for myself, which is, hash 256 plus my own algorithm. Okay, I got it done from one of the software engineer, so I have paid for it. So, but that is how it is. So what will happen is nobody can decrypt, okay, apart from me, because that algorithm is customized only for me. Okay,
Right.
only I can decrypt, and they will not be able to know the calculation method also, because the calculation method is also unique.
Yes.
Okay, so that is nothing but a defense in depth. I am thinking what will happen next. So how the attacker can get into my server. Okay, one is your port redirection and one is your encryption. Correct. So you have to use a secured port, and the port has to be, completely secured. And then you have to use a method where somebody cannot, guess at least. So let's say if I am communicating that device one, okay, and the value for on is one and value for off is zero. So in that case, if I give like that itself, it is easy for a attacker to guess and communicate and close it off. So, but I'm thinking it on another way, other level, where the complete thing is encrypted. So they will not get the exact value, and I am safe. So that is what is defense in depth.
Okay.
So access control, you know very well what is an access control. So
Yes.
what there will be a lot of controls like this. What you have to know is the procedures and policies. Okay, so the procedures and policies will come from the organization. Okay, so you have to go through the procedure and you have to go through the policies. Policies, will be defined within an organization. Okay, so uh, and the governance also, the governance policies, where it has to, where you have to follow by default. So if you are collecting any the card details, then it has to be a PCI compliant. Or if you are collecting any health related things of any of the person, then it has to be HIPAA or something like that. So that is why most of the companies will outsource. Okay, so let's say if there is a small hospital, okay, they, if they are trying to collect, if they are having a portal, and if they want to if they want to keep the uh, patients details, then they have to comply with HIPAA. Correct. So that again comes with a cost. So they will buy a tool which is already a HIPAA certified, so they don't have to worry about that.
Right.
Got it. So that way they are safe. They will pay money. They will think that they are paying a lot of money, but that will be a competitive price when you compare with the controls, whatever they are having. Okay. So that is what it is. So when you come across those situations, then you have to be complied with a policy and a procedure, and then you should not you know do certain things within an organization which will give you a problem. So that is why it is better to have a third party tool in place. That's why even mid level and a higher level means higher management also a higher organization or hospitals also will be outsourced, the services will be outsourced.
Yeah, true.
Then that is one thing which I want to say. Then everything will be self-explanatory, like supervisory structure. You will have so many things like that. Okay, nothing but you will have to supervise in a structured way, or it has to be abide with your policies or something like that. Okay, so here you have a personal control and testing. Okay, then security awareness and training. So this is one of the major concept. Okay, so you you know that there is a threat. Okay, wherever there is a threat, you will have to apply some control. So as a person, okay, as an employee, as a people management, people is also a threat. A person is also an asset, and he is also a threat. So how you are going to avoid that? So you will have to educate people, saying that this should not be done or that should not be done. So that has to be documented. And if any case happens, if anything happens, then you can say that we have already given a training, and we have informed them that this is the thing which has to be done, and it will be written, and that score also will be presented. Okay, so that itself is a security and awareness training control.
Right, yes.
So we have technical access control or a logical control. Do you know what is a technical access control or a logical control?
So technical access control can be, like network level controls that, DMZ, let's suppose something placed in DMZ will have access from the external internet
Yeah,
basically.
so what I would suggest is, instead of saying like that, no, you convert it into a terminology, Anchal.
Okay.
Okay, now you convert that into a terminology and tell me what is a technical access control. Whatever you said is correct only, but convert
Technical
that
access
into a term.
control is using the infrastructure or network level tools, etc., to control the access to systems can be technical control. Logical control is writing some business logic permissions and access on the back-end system, which will be validated every time somebody tries to access the system, is called logical control.
Okay, so I will tell you in a simple way. It is only the limiting access. That's it. Limiting access to certain, roles, and based on certain roles is nothing but technical access control, also called as logical control.
Okay.
Okay. So you're limiting access, right? So some person will have some access, another person will have some access. So that is nothing but you have you are limiting the control. Okay, whether it may be your file storage or access to servers or desktops or anything like that, you are limiting the control. That is nothing but technical access control. That's why I told you, convert it into terminology. Okay,
Okay.
so whether it may be a storage or a network or a system or a file storage or a file folder or anything like that, that is nothing but access, limiting access to a control. So that is your technical access control.
Okay.
Okay, so logical control. Okay, there are two things. One is physical and one is logical. In technical access control, you have two things. One is physical and one is logical. Physical is nothing but physical control. That is your security guards, okay, or checking your bags, or checking your, So let's say if you are wearing a mask, that is a control. If you're not wearing a mask, you will not be allowed inside the office premises. That's a physical control. So logical control is nothing but, within your system, or the file folder or network, or anything like that, your encryption or system access, anything like that, that is a logical control. Okay, so there are two types of control. One is physical and one is logical. Technical access control, that is why it is called as logical control also.
Okay.
Okay, you can take anything that will come under technical control when you say that the limit, if you say that anything which which is limited to control, okay, which you can limit access to a control based on roles and responsibilities, that will be the technical access control.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't go by this ACL alarms and all those things. This, you have to guess. Okay, if it is ACL, then what it is. So that is an access control list. Okay, so
Yeah.
then you can say that yeah, whatever you said is correct only. No, if you say that it is restriction based on the roles and responsibilities, that is nothing but your technical access control. So whatever you said, everything will get applied everywhere. Correct.
Right. Yeah.
So what I told you, there is physical access control again.
Yeah. This is fine.
Yeah. Okay. There are three types of control. One is preventive, deterrent, and corrective. Okay. So can you tell me what is a preventive, deterrent, and a corrective control?
Uh, Preventive is applying certain kind of preventions or defenses. Let's in the system, like a prevention, as in some control. Let's suppose having a firewall. Sorry, not having a firewall. I can say that we know that. Uh, I mean, it's more like we have planned that, okay, these set of people should access the system. So it's kind, for that we have put some logic behind and all. It's preventive. Deterrent is, again, we are uh, we are sending those logs to Splunk and all, where it is getting monitored everywhere, and all our activities are uh, surveyed, and all those things are deterrent, basically trying to avoid any kind of security incident. And corrective is, you know, if something happens, then what is the next steps? Basically, putting down the system, and maybe then later on, maybe asking users to change password and all those things. Maybe is corrective.
Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah, correct. So preventive is okay. Deterrent. Can you tell me deterrent once again?
Deterrent is more of like, I feel that it is more like how we have this security incident, and of course like having correlation searches, firewalls and everywhere, logs, and like I feel that I have a very vague I sometimes get mixed between preventive and deterrent, but yeah. So can you tell me the exact difference between preventive and deterrent? I think corrective is quite simple.
Yeah, so deterrent is, for administrative things, they use a deterrent name called as deterrent controls.
Okay.
Okay, so whatever the guidelines and laws, when you're creating the guidelines or policies and procedures, right? So whichever comes under, the administrative things, they call it as deterrent control.
Okay, basically somebody is monitoring all of this.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
that is what is a deterrent control, and preventive is nothing but, whatever you are applying for a prevention, or whatever you are proposing something. So let's say Qualys. Have you heard about Qualys?
Yeah, Qualys is like a vulnerability assessment tool. It checks for issues.
Yeah,
It
one
checks
second, please. Hello. Security code ಬಿಡಿ sir. ಹೌದೌದು, ಬಿ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ 101. ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ. 907152. 907152. Okay, fine. Bye. Sorry.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
Qualys is like a vulnerability scanning tool for the network. It will check, let's suppose, older version of any application or of any service server is being used or any software being used. Some they have some CVs against that and all those things. So these kind of things will be in Qualys.
Okay. So yeah, that is a Qualys. So that is a preventive measure, right? Preventive
Yeah,
control. Even if you have the antivirus and all those stuff, even if you have a patching solution, still you will put the Qualys in place. So that is a preventive measure. Correct.
yeah,
So corrective is what? Anything which is identified, how are you going to mitigate that? That is nothing but a corrective control.
corrective. Yeah.
Correct. So recovery directive and compensatory. Can you tell me what is recovery directive and compensatory?
Recovery is, let's suppose, for any database, we have a backup database, or for any service, like we have, let's suppose if one server goes down, then at
Okay.
that time, we will have a backup machine which will take up so that availability is not impacted, or we will have a backup of all the database codes and all, so that if there is.
Yeah, see, what I would suggest is instead of telling so many things, you can easily say that if there is anything which is, considered as a backup and a retention period,
Yeah,
okay, that will be considered as a recovery.
yeah,
Okay, so if you have a backup, you should also have a retention period, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that will be the recovery. Okay, so anything, let's say if the server has gone down, so you have a backup, you can recover it.
Yeah.
So if you have a backup, then what will be the retention period of that particular backup? Those things and all will come in a control, okay, or a procedure or a policy. One second, please. Hello. Nine zero seven one five two. ओके दे दिया ना वहां पे ओके ओके बाय so recovery is nothing but once you have a backup then you will have a retention period also in place so that is the recovery and directive or the directive is nothing but a administrative action for a compliance. So if there is any administrative actions which needs to be performed, like your let's say I am your auditor. Okay, so I am a third party auditor. So I will have many companies like if I come to your company, I will be able to go to any other company also, right? So I can exchange the information of that particular company to your company. So not to do that, then I will have a NDA, non-disclosure agreement, which needs to be signed between both of us. Correct. So that is a directive control. And within your organization, okay, within your organization, I can say that I am not aware, so I have done this mistake. So people, not to avoid all those situations, they give awareness training. That
Yeah.
is a directive control. Okay, so compensatory control is, suppose if there is some activity. Okay, so if there is some activity which is performed, okay, and if the, let's say, a procurement team should not be a procurement, a person who is doing a procurement job should not be involved in financial activities. Okay,
Yeah.
so in that case, there is no controls in place, so but that person is critical, he has to go through the finance team also for some kind of an activity. So that is a new control. What I'm saying means, there is no
Mm.
control in the organization, so he is not supposed to do that, but still, he has to do it. So in that case, they will do something called as, means they will take an exception and they will do it. That is nothing but a compensatory control.
Yeah.
Then can we do this asset security tomorrow?
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
So this asset security will be the domain 2 of CISSP.
Okay, okay. So we'll do that together.
Yeah. So great, Anchal. So it was very good to communicate with you, as it was very easy for me to explain, and you are also able to grasp many things very easily.
Thanks, Vinod. Yeah, I mean, this is very helpful for me, and yeah.
Thank you, Anchal. Bye.
Thanks, Vinod. Thanks for your time.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
You too. Yeah.